This is a podcast with Mike Stacy from ID90 Travel and Chris Airy from Compendium Solutions. Welcome to Leaders with Suspicions. I hope you enjoy.
Right. First off, Mike, where are you connecting with us from today?
So I am in Southlake, Texas, which is a suburb just outside of Dallas. We're about 15, 20 minutes outside of Dallas, Texas.
Sure. And how's your day been so far?
It's been fantastic. It was a good start to the day. Got up, had a great workout, and came in here and dealt with a few issues related to our airline part of our business, our hotel part of our business. So today is, I would say, a little bit more of a typical day for me. Yeah. So, but all in all, a good day so far.
Cool. So where I like to start is just understanding a little bit about, you've ended up here, right? I mean, obviously when you were
Yeah.
15, you didn't think, I want to be this person in this role in this industry. So just
Right.
tell me a little bit about the beginning of your journey and like a couple
Right.
of the key pivot points where you look back and you realize there were forks in the road, but at the time you may not have.
Yeah, yeah. So out of university, undergraduate university, I actually worked in one of the largest privately held companies in the United States, and they specialized in chemicals, textiles. At the time, they were one of the largest landowners, and so much more of an industrial type, product business. And so it was great. Learned a lot about manufacturing. Worked actually in a textile plant. Uh, did sales. Did account management. Learned a lot about the the chemical side of the business, and then decided to go back to graduate school and did that at night while I continued to work in this role. And it was right around the internet was taking off, and a lot of, just like what we're experiencing now, kind of the dawn of AI, kind of has that same feel that it did back in the mid to late 90s. And so but when you talk about the fork in the road, uh, it was very interesting. And what I was really, I guess, looking for, maybe was not aware of, is a business where maybe things hadn't been done, and you could go into it without being able to go to your boss to say, well, how did you do this 5, 10, 15 years ago? It was a brand new field. And so luckily, I landed a job at Microsoft just when the internet was taking off. And I kind of cut my teeth there. And then landed we moved from Seattle to Dallas and to help launched Travelocity.com. I got there just after it launched, and that was two jobs that kind of fit what I just described. There was no kind of prior knowledge around, well, how do you build an online business? How do you build a online travel business? And I remember my dad telling me, I'm from a small town in northern Michigan, and my dad was a banker, and you know, he said, I have my travel agent. Why would anybody want to go online? And I could definitely see, his point at the time. And he told me, he says, you should probably go out to LA to try to make it as an actor. You probably have as good a chance of success as this online thing, especially as it relates to travel. So, flash forward a couple years, we were part of a team that took it public and then took it private. And we joked about that comment that he made, and he was turned into a power user of Travelocity. Definitely had some interesting forks in the road in my career, but it has gone by very, very fast, and really punctuated by so many great people that I met and worked with along the way.
So travel then, you've done a few things in it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what makes you love it? What makes you hate it?
I think what I love about it is that it is a very dynamic business, and people that get into travel leave, come back. And I was one of them. And I left the travel industry right after Travelocity and went into another supposedly dynamic industry, the entertainment industry. And it was interesting. I had a pretty cool, interesting job. But the lure of the travel industry married with the still, even when I left Travelocity, there was still so much more to come online. And I really, really missed the industry, the people, and how dynamic the industry can be. But also, boy, you still have to work around a lot of legacy tech issues and try to figure out all of those issues. And it's just so fast moving from the technology part to geopolitical issues to climate issues. There's so many variables that come into having to figure out how to operate and grow a travel business. And I think that's what's really interesting about it. And now, obviously, technology's always been changing, but it's definitely changing at a much faster pace in the last couple of years than I think it really ever has.
Okay, and tell me some of the bad stuff then. What's the usual gripes about travel industry?
The usual gripes are, um, sometimes that companies, especially, we're in B2B, can be entrenched in their ways. And for us, selling to airlines, long, hard sales processes. That is, if you talk to anybody that sells into the airline business or maybe even, some, legacy type businesses, yeah, I mean, it's something they're gonna have to put up with, long, hard sales processes. And that's kind of one of the negatives of it. So, but by and large, I have to be honest, Chris, they're the positives outweigh the negatives. So I wouldn't be in this industry as long as I have. So yeah.
Exactly. I think there's different types of problems, isn't there? There's the ones that just wear you down, and there's the ones that get you going. And
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, that's a very, very good point. But as I tell my team and how I've kind of try to live my life, my philosophy is, when there's a problem, and it might be sound like a bit of a cliche, but there's always opportunities in those problems, and aren't we lucky to be alive to be able to solve problems? And it certainly makes life a lot more interesting and definitely challenging, no question. But you got to look at those problems as really good challenges, and that's what ultimately life is about.
yeah, I agree with that. Fulfilling work is really important, isn't it? The fact that you feel like you're contributing. So yeah.
Contributing, and in the case of for our business, where we're automating airline employee staff travel. So yeah, it's definitely more of a niche part of the travel industry. People join this industry, the airline industry, to take advantage of free flights. The majority of people, and typically, the airline industry doesn't pay a lot of money. So if we can make those flight privileges easier to access, and make it easy for them to shop, ultimately make a reservation, but also surround that transaction with other deeply discounted content, and be that is really rewarding. And we get a lot of positive app reviews, but one of the best ones I remember from last year was, thank you for providing these discounts on hotels and rental cars and cruises, because it enabled my family and I to take trips that we normally wouldn't have been able to take. And we talk a lot about our why at our company, and that app review really summed up the why of what we do and what makes this part of the industry, so rewarding. In other parts, at Travelocity, bringing that content that was behind another person's screen, bringing that forward to give you all of those choices available at your fingertips, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, allow you to easily compare or find destinations that you wouldn't have normally thought of on your own. And anytime you're able to give the power of that to people, is, it makes for a very, very rewarding career.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier on about what we in England called your old man, yeah, your father, and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
about how he was an influencer, maybe in a challenging way there in terms of saying, get over to get
Yeah.
over to the East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
So who else was your mentors? Who do you look back and say, actually they just nudged me or challenged me or pointed me in the right direction?
Gosh, there have been, I've been very blessed. There's been so many people. First one, that comes to mind is my boss at Travelocity, Terry Jones, the former CEO, and he was kind of cut from the cloth of the old airline school, Bob Crandall days and things like that. But he brought that mentality to this internet business, and it really you know taught me not only the value of hard and smart work, but reinforced with me, push through. You're going to have problems. Work hard, work smart, and um, reiterated how important uh, having grit, determination, and resilience is. And there's been other folks along the way. A coach I used to work with, and helped me overcome, some of the issues that I had leading teams and some of my blind spots. And a little bit of imposter syndrome when you're first starting out, and helped me greatly overcome some of those issues. And to a couple of our current board members, could not have been not only supportive of the company, but supportive of me and some of the hard decisions that we've had to make. This company I came in, and it was a complete turnaround situation, and how really learned from them, kind of the same, a little bit of the same that I've learned from other folks, but maybe in a little bit more of a straightforward way, and meaning that um, these guys have kind of been there and done that before in their careers, uh, and really learned from them that, hey, you're going to have major issues. You're going to have to figure out a way, and it's going to be up to you and maybe some of your team to do that. But we're relying on you to do that. And that's pretty empowering. So, so yeah, learned a lot. And even I have three kids, two in college, one about to be in college, and learn from them how they interact with technology. It's really fascinating nowadays how they're two in university, and how they study and learn very different. They have so much more available at their fingertips, but it's amazing how they are able to take advantage of it. And I've learned from them on how to do that, and kind of, and also kind of incorporate that into my life of continuing to learn and things. So and listen, this all wouldn't what I do would not be possible. I just have my wife Lori has been an amazing partner in this journey, especially with this company being in the early days of turnaround situation. And our controller at the time came in, and she said, God, it was just a couple of us here. She was like, I should start looking for another job. I don't know if we're going to be around in a couple weeks. That's how precarious of a situation it was. And but to have my wife stand by me through all of that has been, and other things, has been an amazing gift.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm just finding quite funny the financial controller says to you, 2 weeks. I mean, I know they tend to look at the black and white side of things, but that's
Right.
pretty stark, right?
It was we were in a very, very dark place at the time.
Yeah.
And and I'll never I will one of my board members, we were fretting about it, and he said, all right, that's why we put you in charge. You got to figure it out. And we did. So yeah, and flash forward several years, and nicely we've grown considerably, very profitable company, and able to do a lot of interesting things on the tech and the customer side of our business.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thank you actually for talking about coaching. I think for the viewers that I think it's one of the things that I was surprised about as I moved on in my career, that people do have coaches, and it's almost like a secret. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
leadership are not perfect, right? And they need help. So
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of folks that I've worked with in my career, and I proactively reached out to them because, yeah, I you I want to be the best person and the best leader that I can be, and I have blind spots, and I'm not aware of those blind spots, of opportunity for improvements, and I might not be aware of some of those. And partly because you're in the day to day of running a business and dealing with all of the issues, and especially as the business has grown, how you ran the business you get it from point A to point B is not how you run it, to get it from, B to D to, Z, F and forward. And so you have to kind of change your ways and management style and thinking, depending on where you're at in that company's growth trajectory. And so each part of that growth trajectory maybe requires a different mindset in leadership style, and that's where coaches have kind of helped me think through some of those issues. And then listen, you know, a lot of people think oh there's great, it's nice to be the CEO sometimes, but man, there's also you can't really go to a lot of people. And that's where a coach comes in, right? Yeah, sometimes if you're lucky, you can go to a board member or two. But then do you really want to burden them with those issues? Certainly can't go to your teammates because you're dealing with issues probably that they've never, dealt with. And that's where peers come in. Other folks have been through it. But coaching has been always pretty valuable to me to help understand and deal with a lot of those issues, and most importantly, how to uncover and work through to those your blind spots.
brilliant. Yeah, completely agree. And it can be lonely, so get help.
Yeah, yeah. I was at a conference actually this week, this time last year, and um, and it was a group of CEOs, and it was one guy who gave me the classic. I asked him, I said, "Hey," and he was running a really fast growing company and doing very well. And I said, man, how do you get along? It must be pretty lonely. Who do you talk to? He goes, I go home and I talk to my dog. That's how I work things through. And so I said, well, it's probably not the best strategy, but so he was
Yeah.
just what he was saying is, hey man, figure it out,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. In terms of figuring it out, then, so it'd be great if you could tell me a bit about your business, what you see
Yeah.
the challenges are in the market,
Mhm.
and the plans you're willing to reveal about your response to those challenges in the
Yeah,
market.
absolutely. So I'm CEO of ID90 Travel, and as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we're in the space that automates airline employee travel. So if airline employees, they can fly for free on a space available basis, free or nominal cost, depending on the carrier and where the carrier is in the world. And so one of the number one reason, based upon our research, why most of the airline employees join an airline is to take advantage of free travel. So it's a great recruitment and retention tool. And so that's where we come in. Airlines are in the business, obviously generating revenue. This is non-revenue travel. So the carriers that we work with rely on us to automate this. And it's actually more complicated on the back end to automate than a commercial airline ticket. And so, meaning if you buy a ticket on Expedia or you go through your travel agent, any way that you buy your ticket, processing about 20 to 30 rules, maybe 40 rules on the back end that you as a consumer aren't aware of. And those rules reside within these passenger service systems. And if you're familiar with Sabre, Amadeus, Navitaires of the world. And so that's what on the commercial side it's built for. But these systems normally aren't built to handle the amount of rules that we have to process in order for an employee to make a reservation. And those can be anywhere from at a low end, probably about 150 rules to about, I think at the high end, maybe about 350. So at the end of the day, our reservation engine is an enormous rules engine. And by the way, those rules, by and large, don't have a repository in those traditional passenger service systems like Sabre and Amadeus, Navitaire that I mentioned. So that's where we come in. And so airlines just outsource that reservation process to us, and they don't have to deal with it. So then they can be focused on their revenue generating initiatives, cost savings initiatives. And so that's the bulk of our, that is the kind of the cornerstone of our value proposition. Listen, airlines should be, especially the technical department, which the responsibility of building or maintaining these systems would fall in. They have so many revenue generating initiatives on their plate, so many cost savings initiatives. And then, the CTO, whoever's head of technology, hears from the head of HR, I've got recruitment and retention issues. We need to build a better tool. Where would this fall? Right. And so that is the series of kind of mental gymnastics that they go through at an airline. So when they outsource it to a company like us, they don't have to deal with it anymore. And then we exponentially improve that experience because this is all we do. It's a commercial grade. You can application. Most of the transactions happen on our mobile app. We have a near perfect rating in the App Store. So spend a lot of time really focusing on the employee experience. And so really, if an airline is doing it themselves, are they really focusing on that experience like they are on the commercial side of the business? Probably not. And most airlines aren't doing a good job of it internally because, again, they're not investing in the tool like we do. So we handle all the customer service. So today, our clients, if those employees of our clients have an issue, they're calling our customer service department. We're handling it all. If they're not a client, then they're calling into the same call center that the paying customer is calling into. They're put way down the queue. So customer service is the customer experience really is a big focus for us and really a point of differentiation. So it's not only just about the air experience, but then we surround that transaction with deeply discounted hotels, rental cars, and cruises. So it becomes a single one-stop shop. So that airline, those clients that are ours, those airline employees can have a real seamless experience and really be able to take advantage of their travel benefits because sometimes the cost of a hotel might preclude an employee from actually taking advantage of their flight benefits. And so now if you marry those together and they are taking more trips, so that's exactly what we see in our data, that helps the airline with their recruitment and retention efforts. And then, the average savings for a hotel on our side is about 25%. We show the actual competitor's price if they went to Booking.com, Expedia, one of the known OTAs. We show compare the price right in the search results. And so same with cars and cruises. The cruises can be a substantial deal. So it's a win for the employee, but it's also a win for all of these hotel partners that we work with, the cruise lines and the hotels, because 45% of take hotels, for example, 45% of today's hotel transactions will be for check-in tonight. So it's highly likely that room would have gone unsold. About 70% are made within 3 days of travel. So again, we're bringing that hotel a great customer. They're flying, right? So for a great discount, we can fill that room at a last minute basis. And the same with cruise. Now, cruise, the last minute is defined a little bit longer than the same day or 3 days. Really, last minute is defined in a month. So we work with the cruise line to fill like one of the hardest the types of cabins to fill, those last minute cabins. And again, who can go at the last minute? Airlines, they typically don't work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 schedule. So the majority of the airline employee population works outside of those windows. And so a lot of them can take advantage of great cruise discounts that the cruise lines offer. So it's a real win for everybody. that's involved.
Yeah, fascinating. It's you've really worked out a niche there in terms of a market of customers, right? And then
Yeah,
the
yeah,
proposition around them. It's textbook really in some ways, isn't it? So
yeah.
just a little question on. So do you string together multiple airlines on the flights and give people options, or is it effectively you're only allowed your flight discounts for your airline?
No, we can have multiple carriers. So we give that anybody that's in kind of our ecosystem of carriers, they can fly on each other. And so that's called interline travel. So if I work for Frontier Airlines, for example, or EasyJet, I give you an example closer to where you live. But I want to fly on another carrier, say a United, Southwest Airlines, American, Alaska, Hawaiian, Frontier as an example. Our system would be able to enable those types of transactions in addition to flying on the carrier that you were employed by. So the carrier that you're employed by, that's called online travel. You want to fly on another carrier that you're not employed by, that's called interline travel.
And you're building reciprocal discounts, I guess, are you?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Exactly. That's yeah. So it's super easy, seamless for the employee. All the options are available to them. And it's all done, through our mobile app. And these employees face different pain points than a commercial, if you're flying commercial. And so again, it's space available. So the first pain point is I don't know if I'm going to make it on this flight, right? And so then, geez, am I going to need a hotel? If I do make it, boy, then I got to scramble to buy a hotel. So what we have done is we've created a watch list. So very simple. I go in, I create the flights, if I want to fly from, let's say, Heathrow to Las Vegas, and I have my flight options, then I can go in and pre-shop all of my hotel. So if I do make it, I have a list I can easily go to, click on your watch list. All the hotels that I've pre-shopped are all updated with updated pricing. Then I just pick one and then literally swipe right and I've purchased it. So it saves an enormous pain point. Instead of that employee walking down the jet bridge, scrambling, shopping and finding the best deal, they've already done that well in advance. And then we've definitely taken advantage of AI, machine learning. So one of the other pain points that these airline employees have is when they go to make their flight reservations. Let's use Heathrow to Las Vegas as an example. I want to fly on Friday, but I'm making my reservation on Tuesday. So I can see, so again, the space available. I can see on Tuesday how many seats are there. But does that really good for flying on Friday? Because obviously tickets, more tickets are being purchased. There's a lot of revenue management going on. So we built a machine learning model to be able to predict how many open seats that Friday flight will have, that exact flight number. And so now the employee will have a very good idea of, am I going to make it on that flight, which saves the employee a lot of time and effort, because if a lot of times employees without having that information just go to the airport, right? Oh, am I going to get on the airport? And then that causes congestion at the gate. So we're making it easier for the airline employee. They're going to know I'm going to make it on that flight or I'm not. And then the airport operations are a little bit easier because there aren't as many standbys sitting around waiting to get on a flight. So we launched that in September of last year, and it's been very, very successful. Again, solving a big pain point that the airline employees have, and using modern technology and machine learning models to do that.
So I got a bunch more questions, but could you just give me a
Absolutely.
little bit more about your organization in terms of, customer success team? How big is it? Tech team? Just to give me a view of how you structure.
Oh, so I can say kind of in broad terms, like we're 106 people between we're just outside of I said in Dallas, just a suburb South Lake, Texas, and then we have the majority of our team in Cordoba, Argentina. So that's where a lot of our developers are, customer service, some of our infrastructure is there, sales, marketing, account management, finance is all here in Dallas. And so we have sales and account management team, account management / customer success. And we just completed a net promoter score, and we scored an 85. So with all of our clients, which is very, very high. So we're very proud of that. We, knock on wood, we've never lost a client. And it's a testament to the quality of our technology, the focus that we put on the employee experience, and then the service that we provide the airline. So we assign them an account manager, and that airline has the phone number, email, WhatsApp, any type of live way to get a hold of their account managers. You can imagine a lot of things go wrong at an airline, and even with this type of travel. And so those people that we liaise with at the carrier they never file a ticket, so to speak. They call one of our account people, and we work hopefully in real time, to get those problems solved. So we put a big emphasis on how are we serving the decision makers and the folks that are ultimately responsible for employee travel at the carrier. So we do a lot of work in making sure that they are, serviced in a great way, and not just, again, filing a ticket and waiting for somebody around the world to eventually respond. That's not at all how we operate. So.
Right. Okay. So let's go back a little bit. So for the audience, so there was a time when you were running your business and turnaround.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, looking at your proposition now and where you're at, it's hard to imagine that something with such a clear niche and clear benefits was in trouble, right? So take us back a little bit to, well, why wasn't it working? And
right.
What did Mike do, right?
Yeah. So when the lead investor contacted me, about this, he was, not really familiar with the travel industry, and as a consequence was dismayed. It's like, man, why are we getting more transactions flowing through the system, but we're losing money? And so, yeah, really, great question, right? And so when I got here, I said, very first thing I said, let's just take one single transaction and let's just look at how the economics flow of that transaction. And then what immediately popped off the page was that we were the merchant of records. We were processing the credit card fee on these. And our fee for the transaction wasn't commensurate for, given the fact that to compensate, excuse me, for the credit card fee. Huge problem. So I had to go to a lot of these airlines, and we were I shouldn't say a lot. We only had a couple at the time. And happened to be, I'd say on average, 2.5 years into 5-year contracts. And so I had to go and renegotiate the contracts. And I had a lot of pushback. And, one airline CFO literally told me to F off. You guys have a contract. We have a contract with you, and we expect you to honor it. And I said, okay, I understand your position, but I hope you can understand we won't be around to service you. And then he called in the CTO, and this poor person, CFO, says to the CTO, looks like we're going to have to, build an employee travel management system, and ID90 is going to go away. So this poor guy, he turned white and red because he knew how complex this was. And at the time, I did not have an appreciation. I was probably 3 or 4 months into the job and just learning the complexity of the technology. But flash forward maybe 2 hours, I'm driving back to the airport, and the CFO calls me, and he says, I'd like to renegotiate the contract with you, Mike. This is way more complex, and I apologize for telling you to F off. Hope you understand. It was just a negotiation. So it was kind of one of the funnier stories in my career, but gave me a real appreciation for, how complex it is, but also how, important, again, this is to the airline. But the problem was that this getting them to be the merchant of record. That's what I was renegotiating. We got to switch this to being the carrier to being the merchant of record. They're getting way better deals on on a credit card fee than little ID90 Travel at the time. So they all agreed, and um, but we had to have the work scheduled within their passenger service system, somebody like a Sabre or Amadeus, a Navitaire, and that took a long time. And we had to go to a cross carriage, and so it took I think about 2 years before the contracts were all done and fixed, but for the economics of those new contracts to start flowing, it took ultimately about 2 years, and that was the big problem. And then we said, okay, well, there has to be a way, and we will figure out how to diversify our revenue. We know that the sales process is long into airlines. We have a valuable proposition, but just, hey, airlines tend to move slower. And let's also create other revenue streams. So we did. We started with hotels. So I went to a hotel. At the time, again, I don't have the capability or the resources to go out and negotiate with all these hotels around the world and chains. So we partnered with the company, and I asked for a specific type of discounted rate code that they've never been made available. And technically, they had to decouple it from another piece of their business. And they did. They agreed. So they were our first hotel partner. But our site, we didn't have an app at the time, so it was just our site, wasn't set up to sell hotels. So I asked the technical team, I said, just shove it in. And these deals are really good. People will find it. We know it's not the best customer experience, but I also need proof points because I needed to raise some more capital. And so I have the proof point of, hey, renegotiate the contracts. Yep, the economics of that will start to flow. They haven't yet. We wanted to demonstrate that we could diversify our revenue by selling hotels, deeply discounted hotels. And so because I really needed the capital to build a real system here to meet the market needs. There's a big pain point that we uncovered was the underlying tech in the beginning wasn't going to grow and scale and be able to handle other lines of business. So we were damn near on financial fumes, and we raised around $3 million round utilizing these proof points, and we closed that in May of 2013, and we haven't looked back since. We haven't raised any capital since then. So that was the reason for what the problem. Again, the big problem for causing the financials to be upside down, where we were the merchant of record when the airline should have been the merchant of record. So I had to renegotiate that, and then we put in and added these other lines of business. And so today we partner with about 10 hotel aggregators all around the world. About to add an 11th partner in Asia. Partner with all of the major cruise lines around the world, and all of the major car rental companies around the world as well. And activities we've launched. So yeah, there's flash forward, those are all the things that we've done over the last, several years to enhance the value proposition.
So in that time, you were the kind of leader that needed to be dispassionate about the business, dispassionate about the product, and look at it from a commercial point of view, work out what the problem is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Roll forward to now, you have to be a kind of leader, right? As you said before, you're in a good financial situation, and you've got a steady state organization. So, and I remember earlier you talked about working out the pain point about people standing by the gate, right? So how do you work differently with your organization now? How have you changed in terms of being a different leader? That's like, in the turnaround situation, it's like I'm piling in, I'm going deep.
Right. Yeah.
What do you do now? Are you still like that? Or
No, it wouldn't work. So, in a turnaround situation, you kind of equate it to open heart surgery, patients dying. You got to do whatever you can to get that patient to live. You don't really care about relationships. work relationships. You got to do whatever you can to get that company in a healthy state. And so, then once you get it in a healthy state, very different way. It's from my management style and kind of what I naturally gravitate style that I could naturally gravitate to is much more collaborative, right? And here are the pain points I'm seeing. Here's some of the pain points. We hold a lot of focus groups. Here's what we hear. And so once we got through that painful period, got some capital into the company, the new economics started to flow, things changed really. And and also, gosh, some of the folks that were with me during that painful turnaround couldn't make it to the other part and change. And that was very, very interesting for me, because I guess maybe first time in my life I did a turnaround, but there's a lot of folk, not a lot, some key members of my team that wanted to operate in that same way. But now we're hiring, new people, bringing on people with deep experiences and knowledge in certain areas. And, to be that bull in the china shop during the turnaround it wasn't working. And so I had to make further changes in order to continue to grow the company. And so that was being able to recognize, hey, this style is not working, and it's causing us to slow down. And then being able to have to make those hard changes, because these are, unfortunately, there are people with you who have been through the darkest time, and having to make some of those changes was it is one of the hardest things I've have done in my career, but it was for the betterment of the company and for where the company was going. So now it's a lot of data-driven decisions mixed in with talking to customers about pain points, looking at the landscape of technology that is out there and how can we apply it. Sometimes, customer obviously is a great resource, but sometimes the customer doesn't know, and you have to lead them in certain areas. And so it's a combination of all of those things, using data, talking to customers, but also having a gut feel of where the product needs to go. And being very surrounding myself with people that know more than I do in these areas. I'm not a deep technologist, but a couple years ago, you could definitely see the writing on the wall as it relates to AI. And once you kind of got through, I call it the what was that distributed ledger technology?
Blockchain.
Blockchain, right? There's a lot of hype around blockchain that never, materialized. And you're like, kind of, is this the same thing? And then he's like, wow, no, this is not. And then you start thinking of use cases, right? And then I'm starting to think, okay, we have to get folks in here again that not necessarily know, because this is brand new, but have that mindset of being able to take new technologies and apply it to situations and use cases that are going to help propel the business in a forward way. And that's what we've done. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're managing more like a coach leader rather than a KPI leader. Is that right? You did mention data though, so I was trying to understand that a little bit.
We do both. I do both here. Yeah, I mean, KPIs, we meet every Monday on the key KPIs of the business and even the secondary KPIs. So like I said, we're very data driven. And you have to be. The travel is not exactly a super high margin business, Chris. So you have to be really focused on the KPIs. But the other piece of, I guess, my management style is that you want people who are going to take ownership and drive change. And as you get bigger and grow, I can only do so much. And if I'm in everything, that's probably detrimental to the company. So yeah, very focused on the data, the customer, but also working collaboratively with folks on my team to help move the business forward.
Right. So you've gone through one change about being a turnaround fireman, yeah?
Yeah.
And then the next one is about managing through data and KPIs and
Mhm.
allowing people to do their thing, from the product development point of view.
Yep.
So where next for the business? More international clients, globalization, scale. What are those challenges? I don't know much about your competition or whether you really have any.
Well,
And
no, there's competition. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, for us, we still, even in our core business, Chris, we have a database, that's pretty large. But let's just take hotels for example. Only 17% of that database made a hotel transaction, last year. And so, you move that from 17 to 18 to 19, that's several million dollars of revenue that just falls to the bottom line of customers that you already have. So we have a big emphasis on um, getting more from our existing base for sure. At the same time, um, adding new carriers and employees onto the platform, and then taking that and expanding into new markets. And essentially, he would characterize our market as a closed user group. And so, how can we take a lot of our product offering, our technology, and apply it into other closed user groups, maybe outside the travel industry? So we have a couple experiments going on there. But the bottom line is there's still a significant amount of upside in our core business, and we're really focused on that. We still, despite all the technical enhancements that we've done, there's some big, I should say big, there's some legacy technology issues that we're dealing with that will help address a big challenge that we have, and that should be launched in April and May, and that will allow for everybody's been talking about personalization in the travel industry for a very long time. It's very hard, right? Just because use an author or maybe an Amazon example. Just because I like Harlan, Coben, I might like Harlan Coben, another Harlan Coben book. But just because I took a beach trip doesn't mean my next trip should be a beach trip, right? And so it makes personalization a little bit harder. However, some very interesting AI models that are out there that we've already taken advantage of that can really aid in delivering the promise of personalization. And we've already experimented with this. We have a product in beta, and it has worked phenomenally well. So a lot of folks, especially in the airline community, they have a unique ability to wake up in the morning and decide, wow, I can fly somewhere. Where can I go? That's kind of painful. It's a great problem to have, but there's a lot of information you need to sift through. And so our vision is, and we're executing against that vision. That employee comes on, you immediately show where the open seats are because we have that information because we know exactly, we can predict flight loads, right? You marry that with a great hotel deal and things to do in that particular market. Or you figure out, hey, well, what destination could I travel to? What, based upon my past shopping, again, some of these, marrying that with some of these AI models that are out there can create a very, very different experience for our customers. And ultimately, surfacing maybe different places to go. Hey, it's not just about Vegas. There are lots of other destinations out there. And again, our customer, depending on what carrier they can work for, have, the unique ability to be able to get there for, little to next to nothing. So that's where we're,
fascinating.
yeah.
And in terms of just penetration of the airline market
Mhm.
internationally, where are you up to?
So we have a lot of growth internationally, and Asia's our big growth area. So I would say that we've been traditionally domestic, U.S. focused. We're in discussions with several carriers all around the world, and that sales pipeline outside the United States has grown substantially within the past 2 years. And we're seeing airline employees, you don't have to be a ticketing client, to actually have access into the non-air content, so the hotels, rental cars, and cruises. So we already have, some penetration with employees at European airlines who are already using us for all of that non-air content. But we have a long way to go as far as getting their company that they work for on the ticketing platform, and then working with them more closely in order to promote those discounts of all that non-air content. And BA is one we're working with more closely. A project just went live yesterday, actually, with them, and it'll definitely make it easier for them to get access to much better deals in a one-stop shop. And that's just the first version. There's a long way to go. We have a long way to go of making it even better than what we've done. So lots of growth, especially on the international side for us.
Right. Thank you, Mike. So just for this closing part now of the podcast,
Yeah.
a little bit in terms of, for the audience really. So what lesson have you learned the hard way that you would want others to avoid?
This is going to sound kind of strange.
Okay.
Uh, but I was a first-time CEO in another company, and we had raised kind of a significant amount of money. And it was 2007, 2008. Tough time, mortgage crisis here in the United States. And they said, hey, spend through it. We're going to support you. And I thought, man, I'm not comfortable with this spend trajectory for this type of business. They kept said, spend, Mike, we're here to support you. And they weren't at the end of the day. And if I would have listened, or I would have not listened to my board members, I think that company would have had a much better outcome. And that's a very, 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 tough lesson to learn. Because first time CEO, I assumed they knew more than I did. And so I think what I've learned now is that I have great board members. They have travel experience, some that's outside. And I take that advice, and sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. But I think you have to have the confidence to be able to work in those situations to say, hey, I'm not going to go in this direction, and here's why. And that was a really hard lesson, for me.
I think that's a great lesson because there's two things in there. One, you said the word confidence, but I also hear authenticity. Yeah. And sometimes I know when you're in a situation and it doesn't feel right, yeah, you can question whether you're the right person for the job.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and that's okay actually, because in the end, no one might be the right person for the job at that time for the situation.
Right.
And it's just not easy, right?
Right.
So I think piece about confidence is really important, and if they won't back you, I know people always have family pressures and money pressures on them, right? But it makes it even worse when it gets harder because you did something that's not feeling good to you. So I
Right.
think it's very important to be authentic as well. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
another question be, what do you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Ah, I I not to take everything and myself so seriously. Uh, and I was I guess I'm the first, the only child, and maybe typical, or not only child, I'm the first child. I should say it. That's not cool to my sister, but the yeah, just to be a little looser and not everything, just to be a little less wound up, and have more fun along the way. And I think I was just a little too tight early on, and that could, and maybe that because of that, there could have been other opportunities, different ways of seeing things, that outcomes could have been different, So, but I've definitely tried to be I would say maybe a little less intense about certain things as I've gotten a little bit older, maybe a little bit more experienced. I think, I don't know, you have to ask the people that work with me, but we definitely try to have more fun, and man, life is, it's again another cliche, but life is short, and you want to surround yourself and do things that you're really passionate about, and do it in a way that is going to resonate with others as well. And I think maybe that was a learning for me, and maybe in the beginning of my career.
Yeah, I think that's a generational thing. Last week I was in a BPO business in the Philippines, and I was talking to the Asian community,
Mhm.
talking to them, and I did the icebreaker in terms of, what's one thing that no one else in this room knows about you? Obviously that you're willing to admit to, right?
Right.
And I found myself being the old man at the end saying, we were talking about careers and everything with them, and I said at the end, don't forget who you are. I don't save those hobbies for your retirement. I mean, around the room there were singers, there were writers, there were people who like cooking and enjoying that. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
quite easy to lose all of that and then one day go, what happened? Yeah. So, but some of the best balanced people I've seen make time for the downtime and the breaks and the hobbies. And I'm talking to myself at this point as well, right? Because
Yeah.
I certainly do enjoy my work too much, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, that you're lucky, right? And to be in a position to enjoy your work, but you're absolutely right. And it's, if you have, hobbies, no matter what they are, I think you may be a little bit more interesting too, right? So not a lot of people like talking about your job. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Because there's
yeah,
only so much at the dinner party you can talk about your job.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mike, thank you. That's been a fantastic podcast, and really enjoyed meeting you. So,
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you very much. And I appreciate your interest in our company, and I wish you the best of luck.
all right. Thank you. Cheers, Mike.
Thank you. All right, take care.